Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Long-time viewers probably know that I am a fan of Archon Studio. I put some money behind their Dungeons & Lasers Encounters crowdfunding campaign, I am collecting their Masters of the Universe Battleground game, and I have had the pleasure of collaborating with them on numerous projects. At the moment, Archon are gearing up for their new crowdfunding campaign, World of Deuslair, which is expanding their Dungeons & Lasers range of fantasy terrain and miniatures into a complete D&D 5th edition compatible role-playing experience. The aim is to produce a bestiary of unique monsters, a full campaign with a fleshed out world to explore, and over 400 miniatures to populate your quests. It all sounds pretty cool, so I am of course delighted to be able to say that I have once again been able to team up with Archon Studio to work with them on this campaign. In today's video, we're going to learn a little more about Deuslair, and we're going to take a look at this sample pack, which contains 3 of the unique beasties that are part of this new world's extensive range of monsters. But before we put these together, let's take a brief tour through the colourful history of Deuslair. The legend goes that there was once a great battle between two gods, Chaos and Order. Chaos was banished, but Order was destroyed and its remains buried. Many years later, the human nation of the Dragsa discovered a magical ore they called the Roots of Life that allowed them to combine magic and technology in fantastical ways. They flourished, but other nations were suspicious of the ore and tried to prevent the Dragsa from using this forbidden magic. Naturally, the Dragsa refused to give up the power they had found, and this led to a great war. The Dragsa began making vile experiments, creating the Beastkin races to serve as warriors and slaves, while their opponents formed the Rideau Alliance to end this madness. The war raged on, with Dragsa ultimately having the upper hand, but then alien forces claiming to be the disciples of Chaos invaded. And this is where you join the story. Will you fight for the Dragsa or the Alliance? Will you battle to maintain the status quo, or will you attempt to rally all the nations, including the wild beastkin, to defend the world against the disciples of Chaos? The World of Deuslair crowdfunding campaign is your gateway to this new world. It launches on the 11th of April 2023, and I think this thing is going to be huge, because all in, there's the potential for over 400 plastic miniatures at less than $1 a mini, plus the bestiary and campaign book. There are 22 miniatures for the Dragsa, 35 for the Rideau Alliance, and 42 for the Disciples of Chaos. Interestingly, some of these miniatures will be multi-part, coming with a range of heads, weapons, and accessories allowing you to create several different versions for even more variety. Then there are numerous themed add-ons, each containing at least 40 miniatures to help you create unique encounters, such as of Sea and Thunder, which lets you explore the flying islands of the Scareguard archipelago, Armies of Chaos, which lets you build terrifying legions of dangerous foes, or the White Eyes Dunes for when the heroes feel like risking a journey into the desert in search of great fortune. And of course, there's an early bird incentive, an owlbear no less. Got to love an owlbear. There will be community stretch goals, and as with the previous Dungeons & Lasers Encounters campaign, there will be regular stretch goals and super stretch goals. In short, you aren't going to find it difficult to populate your adventures in Deuslair. But if that still isn't enough, there is also an opportunity to grab some sets from previous Dungeons & Lasers campaigns that you may have missed out on. Sets such as the Swamps of Doom and the Land of Giants are available as add-on purchases. Even the Gargantuan Tarrasque is available. I have one of these things in my collection, and I'm going to be painting it in a future video. It's enormous. At the moment, the full depth of the campaign is still unfolding. The goblins behind the scenes are working frantically to put together fantastic pledge offerings which will gradually appear as we near the launch date. At the moment, Archon Studio have previewed a novice pledge level at €89, containing the core set, the bestiary, and the regular stretch goals. Then there is the €189 adept pledge, comprising the core set, 2 add-ons of your choice, the bestiary, and the campaign book, plus all stretch goals and super stretch goals. If that all sounds good, you may want to check out the link in the video description below, which will take you to the preview page for the campaign, and where you can click the Notify Me button so you will get a heads up when the campaign goes live in April. Of course, a campaign like this lives or dies on the quality of the miniatures, and I think Archon Studio do great work in this regard. Let's take a closer look at the miniatures from the Deuslair sample box, all of which are going to be in the Deuslair core set. We have our frame with our 3 monsters on it. They're all a good size and nicely detailed. One thing to note is they don't have any bases. There's a simple reason for that. In the Deuslair campaign, Archon Studio are creating separate sprues of scenic bases for use with all the creatures. A little something like this sprue from the Encounters campaign. And that means there are no specific bases on any of the creature frames. Fortunately, I have plenty of bases here and they will do just fine. So let's see what these miniatures look like once they are assembled. First up, here we have our Piggy Man. This is a great miniature. Slightly odd posing on the front leg, I positioned him standing on a small tactical rock just so he wasn't leaning too far forwards. As with all miniatures of this type, I cut him out of the sprue using side cutters, making sure I kept the flat of the blade as close to the connection point on the miniature as possible. Then I cleaned up any nubs with a mould line remover and put everything together using plastic glue. This one was only in 5 or so large pieces, so it went together really quickly and easily, and it looks suitably imposing. I have a little background information on this creature here, which I'm going to read now. The Vepri, also known as Pigfolk, make up the majority of the military forces in the fortress of Deuslair. They are known for their keen senses and training and are not to be underestimated, even though they are smaller than most humans. A few Vepri experience a mutation that causes them to grow to a very large size. These individuals are called Tuer, which in their tongue means strong. They are rumoured to have immense strength and endurance. Their enhanced awareness allows them to react quickly and protect their allies. Next up we have our Elder Krill. The Krill are a sort of bird people, but you couldn't really tell that from this miniature because of the cowl and what I assume is some kind of ceremonial robes. This thing looks like it's come straight out of the Dark Crystal movie, and that's no bad thing. Again, it was only in a few large parts, although this was the most complicated of the 3 pieces to assemble. It's a good chunky size. And again, we have some background text for this creature. The highest ranked shamans of the Krill race are referred to as Elder Krill. When confronted with attackers, they can transform into towering giants and use magic to create illusions to entrap their enemies with overgrown vines. The Krill follow their own moral code, which may seem unorthodox to civilized people. Finally, we have my favourite, the Rashers Golem. This is a huge tree-based construct under the control of the Rashers, who are the little alien-looking things on the top of it. This was 6 or so pieces and went together really nicely. Let's hear a little bit about this character from the diary of the famous traveller Van Cleur. The Rashers are small primitive inhabitants of the Skaregard archipelago with innate magical abilities. My ancestors tried to civilize them, but they rejected it in favour of their sacred rocks, trees and sticks. Despite this, they still thrive on the islands due to their unique magical abilities. When they gather together, they can synchronize their magic and animate dead wood to create wooden golems called Rashers Golems. They are sturdy, they are strong, they are relentless. What's even worse is the fact that you need to deal with them fast, since as long as their masters are pouring magic into the golem, they keep on regenerating. Their only real weakness is how nice they burn whenever you set them alight. It is unclear whether the golems are made from dry wood or if the Rashers' magic drains the water from them, but they are prone to burning easily. So there we have our 3 residents of Deuslair, some of the creatures unique to this land. Of course, not everything in Deuslair is this sort of size, there are lots of smaller creatures and humanoids, but I think this is a good indication of the kind of detail and quality Archon Studio are offering with this campaign. Of course, seeing them in their natural grey state is fine, but I really want to put some paint on this tree golem. I can't end this video until I've done that. So here's our Rashers Golem spray undercoated with Chaos Black. Now we're all busy dungeon masters here, we want to get stuff painted quickly. We could use something like speed paints from Army Painter, but we're going to rely on dry brushing and washes, and we're going to let all the great detail in the miniature do the hard work for us. We start with Mournfang Brown and we're going to do a heavy overbrush. This is like a dry brush but with a little more paint left on the brush. We still don't get into all the recesses, but we do get a heavier coverage. Then we switch to Agrak's Earthshade and we want to slosh this over everything. Get into all of those black recesses, all those nooks and crannies. Once that's completely dry, and you need to really make sure it's dry in those deep details, then you can go back to Mournfang and do a dry brush this time. So make sure most of the paint is off of the brush and then whip it over the details of the miniature to hit all those raised points. You can build this up over several applications if you want to. Just remember to go against the direction of the details so your dry brush is only hitting the top areas. Then we are switching to Steel Legion Drab and we're going to do more of a targeted dry brush. This needs to go on the face and the top parts of the arms and legs. I'm also putting it on any stones and on the skin of the Rashers. I have no idea what colour Rashers should be, so I'm going for a sort of brownish green. I guess they are some kind of wood nymph or spirit, so brown and green work for me. Next we are switching to Seraphim Sepia and we are going to paint this between the details of the rock areas. That's the toes, the back of the legs and the big stone strapped to its back. Then I'm switching to Xandri Dust. I'm changing to a smaller dry brush and I'm going to use this on the stones and the skin of the Rashers. Next I am using Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to dry brush the stones. This way they'll stand out from the bark of the tree while still looking like part of the golem. And at this time I'm also going to dry brush this cape on the back, and there are some little ropes around the waist that I will pick out as well. Next is Goblin Green from Army Painter. I'm going to use this to dry brush the foliage on the top. We don't need to get a lot of colour on there, just a little bit. We can also get some colour on those rashers and the base too. Then I am going to dry brush the rashers and the base with Auroch Flesh just to brighten them up a little more. I'll also put this on the base just for some extra colour and definition. Then I am switching to Athonian Camo Shade and I'm applying this to the base and the foliage as well as the rashers. You can also put a little of the Camo Shade in the recesses, on any curly vine-like parts, or wherever you want really, just to break up the colour a bit more. But at this point I decided I wasn't quite happy with the bark of my tree, so I decided to do one more very light dry brush with Xandri Dust just to help make all the details pop. Next I am switching to Coelia Green Shade and I'm doing a heavy wash of that over the cape. I could have gone for something brighter, red maybe, but I wanted to keep the colours relatively muted and neutral. Then I am using some thinned down Abaddon Black to paint in the eyes of the golem and all of the rashers. And then I will use thinned down Ulthuan Grey just to put a little dot on each of the eyes for a little reflection and to add some extra character. Finally I will apply Steel Legion Drab around the rim of the base just to finish it off. And there you have it. It's not winning any awards, but it's getting the miniature coloured and on the table in hardly any time at all. You don't need a really steady hand because you are relying on washes and dry brushing, and total time with brush in hand couldn't be more than half an hour. So that is a quick look at the World of Deuslair and some of its inhabitants. As I mentioned before, there is a link in the video description to the preview page for the campaign. Hop over there, make some comments or suggestions if you have them. Archon Studio are welcoming opinions at this stage, and then hit that notify button so you know when the campaign goes live. And that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.